talk is called Psychiatry, Love, and the Healing Power of Connection. So this photo was taken of me on December 15, 2013. And I know that date so well only because it was exactly 2 days later, on December 17th, that I went to the ER for what were very minor symptoms at the time, cough, tightness in my chest, and they took a very different kind of photo. It was a chest x-ray, and I know we're all a little far removed from radiology, but they said that this whole shadowy thing was bad, and understatement of the century. And then there was a CT scan, and it confirmed the worst. There was this, and no, that's not my heart. I asked that question, even though I knew what the answer was. It was a tumor, taking up most of my chest cavity, measuring about 18 by 11 by 7 centimeters, casing my heart, and what you can't see is I had some pleural effusions there too. I wish I could say being told I had a giant tumor in my chest was the worst news that I got that week. Oops, that's out of order. Hold on a second. But it wasn't. Then it was that not only did I have lymphoma, but I had not one of the more common, more easy to treat types of lymphoma, but a much more rare, much more aggressive form called acute lymphoblastic T-cell lymphoma, that I didn't need 6 months of chemotherapy like you would with those other lymphomas, but 3 years. That I didn't have a 30 to 40% chance of infertility like I would with those other chemotherapy treatments, but a 100% chance I would be not only infertile, but menopausal at 31. And that I could wait 2 weeks, I could delay treatment by 2 weeks in order to do an egg retrieval cycle and try to preserve my fertility, but that the tumor was so aggressive that if I did that, I could die. So, you know, have fun with that decision. Let me know tomorrow. Shoot, right? Except I didn't say shoot, I said the 4-letter version. I said a lot of 4-letter words around that time. I'm going to backtrack actually about 7 months to May of 2013 when the 5th major version of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, the DSM-5, was released. And you know, this is our diagnostic Bible in psychiatry. And the goal was at the time that by the time this version was released, we would have advanced our understanding of the neurochemical, biological basis of the diseases we treated to the extent that we would be able to have more accurate and more objective diagnostic criteria for psychiatric disorders. So we'd be able to diagnose schizophrenia with a genetic analysis or depression with a blood test. And as you know, we didn't achieve this goal. And so there was a lot of controversy surrounding this. Thomas Insel, the director of the NIMH, famously lamented in his blog at this time, "Unlike our definitions of ischemic heart disease, lymphoma, or AIDS, the DSM diagnoses are based on a consensus about clusters of clinical symptoms, not any objective laboratory measure. Patients with mental illness deserve better." I remember even back then when I first read this, I felt it was missing the mark a little bit. That's not to say that this isn't a laudable goal and that it isn't important, but this seemed to me to be the least of what our patients deserved. Yes, we do need better diagnostic criteria. We need more targeted therapies. We need a better scientific understanding of the organ that we treat and the treatments we use to help our patients. But this is really just step one of how we help our patients. I think back to what my doctors did for me and how they started my healing process. There we go. While I can't understate the importance of chemotherapy, realistically, without it, I wouldn't be here right now. It saved my life. This was just step one of what my doctors did for me, giving me the right diagnosis and starting me on the right treatment. And I'll tell you a little bit about my healing process so you see what I mean. So when I was first admitted to the hospital, my oncologist noticed that I had a rock-hard palpable lymph node above my collarbone that I actually hadn't noticed, a cancerous lymph node. And the next morning, it was gone, and that was actually before I started chemotherapy. This chest x-ray was taken when I was admitted, and as you can see, this one's, it's a total mess. There's the mass, there's effusions here taking up my lung space. This next chest x-ray was taken just a few days later after I had received 4 days of chemotherapy, and you can see the entire upper pole of the tumor is dissolved. This next chest x-ray was taken just a week after that, and that was after no additional chemotherapy. And you can see the tumor is pretty much gone, at least on chest x-ray. There's no evidence of the giant tumor that had been there, really taking up most of my chest just 2 weeks earlier. You look at these are my PET CTs and before and after treatment, and so just ignore this chemo-induced flabby butt syndrome. I don't know what that's about. But yeah, I gotta work on that at some point. So, but you look up here, and here's my tumor, and this is, I have the dates up here. This was December 20th, 2013. This is January 20th, 2014. The entire tumor is gone. And what you can't see on this scan is that when I was first diagnosed, I had metastatic lesions in my heart and my lungs to multiple lymph node groups in my body, including my abdomen. So this was very advanced stage 4. And less than 6 weeks later, I was completely in remission. There was no evidence of cancer in my scans. So why did I respond so well to treatment? That was fast, by the way. When I went into remission, I was joking with my oncologist. I said, so like, how awesome am I at fighting cancer? Like, if you were to rate me from 1 to 10. And he just laughed, and I was like, no, seriously, like, give me a grade from like A to F, like A plus, something around there. He didn't take me that seriously. But I point this out because I know it was not just chemotherapy that did this. I know it was also love that did this. My healing started when I first met my oncologist in the hospital. And in expressing to me how urgently we needed to start treatment, he touched his hand to my chest where my tumor was, and he said, we need to get this out. We don't touch enough in medicine. We're terrified too in psychiatry, like the world's gonna explode or something. If you touch your patient, it's gonna be some huge boundary violation. But when he did that, I could feel at that moment a whole bunch of cancer cells just keeled over and died. It was the next day when the hematology oncology fellow, I was sobbing to her that I was never gonna be able to have children, and I was really inconsolable, and I was saying, 100% chance. They said there's a 100% chance I'm never gonna have children. And she sat down next to me on the hospital bed, and she put her hand over mine, and she said, nothing is 100%. And a whole bunch more cancer cells just died. It was when my best friend from medical school, who had long brown hair like I used to have, cut it all off in solidarity with me, and then also so I could use it for a wig. It was when so many people, my healthcare providers, my friends, my family, showed me in so many ways that I was loved, that I realized no matter how hard this treatment was, no matter how shitty it got, that I was loved and that I at least had a life worth coming back to. Now, I know that I'm an N of 1. This is an anecdotal story, but unsurprisingly, the research supports that love and social connection are powerful healing forces. So in this study, 10,000 men were followed for the development of heart disease, and whether or not they answered yes or no to the question, does your wife show you her love, predicted the development of angina more so than did smoking in this study, more so than smoking. And then a similar study had a similar effect, showing that men who were showed love by their wives developed fewer gastric ulcers. In this study, 1,400 men who had cardiac catheterization were followed for 5 years. And of those who were not either married or did not have a close social confidant, were 3 times more likely to die in that period of time. In this study, healthy subjects were purposely given the cold virus, and yes, people somehow, for some reason, volunteered for this study. And those who, they characterized the types of relationships they had and how strong they were. Those who were in the group with the fewest social relationships were 4 times more likely to develop cold symptoms than those who had more social relationships. And then one last study I'm going to show you, about 7,000 participants were followed, and these were older individuals, followed for 17 years. Those who had fewer social relationships were 3 times more likely to die by the end of the study period than those who had close relationships. You know, I show these studies because, well, like this is Grand Rounds, and I'm supposed to quote studies, and you guys are getting to see me and all that stuff, but really, how many studies do I need to quote for you to believe or to know that love is a powerful healing force, you know, that social connection heals? Sometimes I feel that in our excitement/fury to practice evidence-based medicine, you know, to have a study that we can quote for everything we say or do or practice or prescribe, that we forget that it's possible we can know things without there being a double-blind, placebo-controlled study proving it. You know, who here has not had a patient where you felt you had nothing to offer them, you know, in terms of treatment, but that you could offer them your presence and you could offer them your compassion, and that these forces alone helped, if not healed them? You know, we've all had that experience. And what is wisdom if not that? The capacity that we can know things, not just with our heads, not just because there's a study saying it, but with our hearts. I wish I could say that my story ended when I went into remission after 6 weeks, but unfortunately that was just the beginning. Because of the aggressive nature of my tumor, I have to, and the tendency for relapse, I have to do the full 3-year chemotherapy regimen, of which the first year is very intense, you know, up to 5 days a week of chemo. It's a particularly brutal regimen. And it really sucks, to be honest. You know, however bad you think it is, it's probably worse. I am not even going to bother to explain it. It's one of those things I think you either understand because you've been through something similar, or you have a hard time understanding. Just to come here and do this talk, I had to take a whole lot of pain meds, and I'll probably be recovering for like a week, you know, after I fly home. I'm living with my parents right now in the Bay Area. And, you know, I don't keep showing up to chemo because I love being poisoned so much. This is a particularly pathetic picture of me when I had a lumbar puncture headache, and the only thing I could do is put like cold compresses on my head. Yeah, I don't keep showing up because, you know, I'm so glad that my doctor gave me the right diagnosis and I'm taking the right chemo, and I just pump that chemo into my veins, right? You know, I keep showing up for 2 reasons. One is that I have meaning in my work. I love psychiatry. I feel like I have important contributions I want to make to this field, and I feel like my work isn't done. So that's 1, and then 2 is I have love in my life. I have people, and this includes my healthcare providers, the doctors and nurses and everyone who's taking care of me, who have helped me create a life that is worth coming back to when I'm done with all this. This is a picture of me when I'm in the hospital with a bunch of my friends visiting when I was first diagnosed. Connection matters. Social support matters. The relationship between doctor and patient matters. It's often the most important thing that we do. So in our excitement and well-intentioned effort to move psychiatry into the future and develop a greater scientific understanding of, you know, the neurochemical and biological basis of the illnesses we treat and the treatments that we provide, let's not forget what is the foundation of what we do, what is the core of what we do, which is our relationship. Let's not forget why many of us went into this field as opposed to another field. You know, that we feel the relationship is important, and that we as psychiatrists place value on these qualities more so, I think, than other physicians in other fields of medicine. You know, that is the power of hope, the power of the human spirit, the power of love. This personally is what I think our patients deserve. Thank you.